I note that when submitted, we didn't address this issue. So maybe it's good it's coming back to us. We could address this issue among other things that the board has had concerns with. All that said, we have a newer master plan constructed by this commission leading up to January 2005, reviewed last year as required within a 5-year period by the state, and deemed acceptable going forward. So that is our document, but it's a guiding document. It's like a business plan. It's a strategic document. The T will be in our ordinances. So that puts the burden on us, not having ordinances to go on to reach some conclusion on this density question that's part of this proposal. If we are to recommend approval, we would have to, I believe, we'd have to make part of that, we have to reconcile this density question in our recommendation to the Township Board. Because while we may understand all the things I just talked about, with that's not something that they, are going to think of on their own, unless it's Edwards who's here. Mr. Folker.
Yeah, the master plan was something that we worked on for several years. One of the things we were all quite concerned with during that period was the inclusiveness of the township, the availability of housing options. We included the senior housing option as something explicit and repeatedly in the master plan, and I don't think any of us in our mind would have had anything very much different than independent living, assisted living facilities when we talked about we should have the availability of senior residents in the township to cover seniors in all stations of health and well-being and so forth. So, and then as we travel through our community, we see these kinds of facilities. We know what they look like. We know some of this personal experience of what the use is and how people use it and how it's maintained and managed. So I guess what I'm saying is, yes, the zoning ordinance does not have specific dimensional characteristics for these facilities. But as planning commissioners, when we were saying this is something we should do, we were envisioning something along these lines. We weren't envisioning a senior community in which the average lot size was quite large and the average building was...
That's a great point, if I may pick up from there. We weren't envisioning the cookie cutter retirement, or whatever they call those things. I'm going to step on myself if I say this the wrong way. We weren't envisioning what you often find when you see senior communities, which would be 1 or 2 large buildings. So it was just that component of this proposal. You see that a lot, and that's not what we would envision here. I suppose that if you took a poll, then you're right, that we would envision some kind of a mix of what the applicant has given the moniker independent living facility and assisted living facility. Not nursing home, that's not even on the table, but independent and assisted, I think, are the 2 terms used by the applicant. But I want to go back to what you included in your statement there. The applicant has proposed a combination of independent and assisted living accommodations in this senior community. The residents have expressed in a couple of different forms, written and verbal, a vision that's a little bit different. In fact, it's more in line with what you said at the end, that maybe big lots for these seniors make it Oakland Township, which in their vision, and I don't want to put words in their mouth, but bigger lots, and have space, get a little bit of elbow room, have larger units if they're gonna have units, have larger units and have more space between them, i.e. a lower density. And we have, and maybe this is a good point to reference it, Mr. Hines submitted a document in our package, well, I don't have to say because I don't have to reference it for the minutes because it's in our packets, but where I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the suggestion is, hey, seniors are okay, and if they have to be there, well, we have all our concerns about traffic, but they do have to be there. Let's give them more elbow room and make it more Oakland Township-like character-wise. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay. But that's not what you said, right? That's not what you said. And I don't know any examples of this, although I suspect there's a pretty good example of it almost right across the street. I mean, there are condos that are larger condos, there's space and there's room in between them and so forth, that if seniors 55 and older were looking for condos that didn't have the outside maintenance and they wanted to spend, what are they, $400,000 or $500,000? They used to be $600,000. You know what I'm talking about? What do you call that one? Cloisters?
Claremont and Cloisters.
Claremont and Cloisters. Give us that option right now for somebody, for seniors of means who want or need the space and want to be in Oakland Town. We have that option now. We just don't call it a retirement community, but what's the demographic of Claremont and Cloisters? Is that not typically 55 and older? Well, you tell me, Dominic, I don't know.
Majority would be in their 50s, but we have several residents in their late 30s and mid 40s. But the majority are all over 55.
And you have the occasional athlete that might want that so that they're, when they're traveling, basketball player or whatever. Do you have any of those in your words? They did.
In each neighborhood.
In each neighborhood.
Yes, they've chosen the Adams corridor well. But what I want to just clarify that statement. This community, as Mr. Nix references in his recommendations, is age restricted expressly, and is to be, the language is written by the township attorney, and to comply with state and federal laws, that we attach that law that we have to comply with. So it is a little different because it's very expressly written that it is for the agent. And so that's the difference.
Now, clarify, because I don't know. When you say age restricted, 55, I've got a buddy who's 57 and his wife is 32. They're okay, right? Because one of them's 55.
That's correct.
Now, if he should pass away, does she have to move out?
Not immediately, no. It's just, she could reside there under the state and federal law. That's part of the protection. But the likelihood that they remain there long-term is de minimis.
Well, unless she remarried somebody who was... But if she decided to go the other way at 25, I mean, I don't know how far we're carrying it, but...
Be the nice guy there, you know?
I get the point.
That's right.
Like,
And I don't want to explore that. It's in the packet that we attached. It's a one-page. It's the federal law, and it addresses that exact circumstance that you bring up, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
and I'm not convinced that that is at least from my analysis of it, the question of the fair housing laws and the recognition of the seniors as a demographic that's protected, that's a township board question, I think. I mean, what we have posed here is a senior community. The applicant has stated throughout the proposal that this is designed for age-restricted 55 and older. Mr. Nix pointed out that would have to have more people and be included in the legal documents. That would come later by the township attorney. I have no doubt that it would not be, included. Triple negative and stuff there. I have no doubt that would be in whatever final document is drafted with regard to legal restrictions in your bylaws and so forth. So we have an age restricted 55 and older community. The question that Mr. Folkrod kind of moved us in the direction of is the one of character. What is the character of a 55 and older age restricted community in Oakland Township? We don't have definition for that in our master plan or in our own ordinances. We do have the latitude as a planning commission to consider this proposal as it stands or with modification. We do have the latitude to consider that very question in making a recommendation either in support or in opposition to this proposal when we pass it along to the township board. In other words, we have the responsibility to opine on the character. Does this fit in with the character of the township and the surrounding area? Sticky question without any ordinance or master plan to support it. Go ahead, Janine.
The other comment I was going to make that's relative to that, I think, is remember we've been also supplied information and review of the output of the surveys that have done with the residents here and their opinions on overall housing and what we look for here in Oakland Township. And you could, I think, use that as a basis for any age group. I don't think that, and I think it does not necessarily have to say as you get older, you have to have less and less space in every instance.
Right, but just to go there, rural character is one of the overriding things, whether you're 6 or 60 or whatever, that is part and parcel of being in Oakland Township. Does developing this parcel make it, I mean, is the parcel rural now? Well, yes, it's undeveloped, there's trees on it, there's some wetlands on it, there's natural resources, there's a view shed, yes. Does developing it as proposed change that? Yes. Does it change it in a way that eliminates or removes that rural character? That's a point of discussion.
I think the other point of discussion too that's relative to is it's not a nursing home. I mean, I think of I tried to review as many people as I could think of that I know that are 55 or over, where they are in their point of life. And I'll grant you maybe, it's a small sample, but where are they living now? Where would they like to live if I know that? And how would they like to be surrounded? And what do they plan into the future for their own, needs into the future, right to the end of life? And so many people have told me, I want to stay exactly where I am in my home, and if I can afford it. And if I have to at the end, a nursing home. And it's almost like that. When I remind myself when I look at this, that there are many people who would not see this as an alternative thing. Not knowing the future, certainly you need a crystal ball. But I've heard that over and over again in that regard. And it's also mentioned, I think, in some of the materials that we've presented with too, that many people prefer to stay in their home, buy the services they can, if they need it, in assisted living, and then move to an alternative if they have to, or if medical situation predicts. But this is not a nursing home scenario. Never has been, and it's clear to me now that that's the case.
Well, I don't think people are excited about moving into nursing homes. I think they go into it kicking and screaming, from wherever that's not something that they say, ooh, that looks nice. They have a nice parkour course over there in the nursing home. I can get there in my wheelchair. They're not doing that, right? They don't have wheelchair shuffleboard there. But I think what the applicant has proposed here is that you might make that decision earlier when you say, look, I don't want the maintenance of the house. I like the rural character of Oakland Township. I like the natural beauty. I like being in close proximity to my kids and grandkids. And so I would like to move into, and I don't need assistance yet, but I move into independent living, which is part of this proposal. I move into a smaller condo because if your bones are creaking, you don't want to be walking that far from the bedroom to the front door or the kitchen, right? But so maybe I don't need that 5,000 square foot home I had. But I also don't need any help. I'm pretty good.